Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans from a diehard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and of course, what I'm most proud of, a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. You know, I like to brag that I once stood behind Paul Wall in a Kroger in the Heights. That's right, y'all. I'm famous. I spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer here in Los Angeles, and now, well, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You just start absent-mindedly calling it The 10 instead of I-10, and the mayor shows up and gives you a podcast. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports was started as a passion project because most media is infuriating. As a diehard long-term fan of the Houston Astros and your Houston Rockets and Texans, so here we try not to be doom and gloom casual Astros fans, or worse, the national media haters. We love our team and root them on, but we also try to discuss the ins and outs of them without too much homerism. The key word here, of course, is try. At this point, I'd like to welcome new listeners and, of course, welcome returning listeners to what my brother calls the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brother, check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my pronunciation there. We're recording this transmission, as always, in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Raws to my Frasier. Carla, the dog, is here with me. If you've listened to the podcast before, you know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast, not me. I've got the cool takes. I try to be a dose of reason in this crazy world and sometimes even crazier sports world. Folks, on this podcast today, we have not done an episode in quite some time. Honestly, someone called me out. They said, you haven't done one since the Rockets lost. So we weren't hiding. We try to be positive. We weren't hiding away the negativity or anything like that. Folks, I've been busy. I have been busy, y'all. But I'm very happy to return to the podcast today. We're going to talk a little bit about our Rockets, and then we're going to talk about our Astros, and a follow up to finish up this wonderful return podcast. I have Brother Jesse on the podcast later today, so let's get to it. Let's talk sports. First and foremost, I said we'll talk about our Rockets, so we have to. I said the Rockets were gonna win in 7 games. Obviously, the Rockets lost in 7 games, but still, I feel vindicated. Obviously, we'll talk about the heartbreak in a second, but I'm gonna start off a little defensive and a little vindicated. You know, there were people that said me saying Rockets in 7 games was a homer call, that I was being a little bit delusional. Well, folks, the Rockets took the Warriors to 7 games. Now, did they win like I projected and predicted? No, of course, they didn't win. I'm not trying to act like I won. I called it. But the fact that I called 7 games and it ended up being a 7-game series, when so many people were just bullish on the Warriors, that I feel vindicated just a little bit. You know, if you go back and you check the receipts and you're like, Paul, you were being a delusional homer. No, I wasn't. You check the receipts. In the predictions, I was saying that the Rockets would have to get a good amount of offense from Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, and Alperen Sengun. As the series went on, I was happy that Amen Thompson was unlocked because of how poor Jalen Green's showing in the playoffs were. So I feel like I called it. I felt the defense was going to be able to make the series very difficult for the Warriors. I was jokingly calling them old and that they would have a hard time running with these Rockets. And they did. They had a really hard time running with the Rockets. Steph Curry was absolutely tanked after the Rockets series and was injured in the Minnesota series. So the Rockets really put the hurt on the Warriors. And I think if they found that offense like I was begging them to find, they could have easily won this series. But alas, they didn't have the roster for it this season. So going into the offseason here, Rockets fans are asking a lot of questions, and some of them are very angry questions. They're angry questions directed at Jalen Green, who, after a pretty solid season, a season in which we thought Jalen Green perhaps was moving up a tier in his how we value Jalen Green as a player. He struggled and kind of was a non-factor in many of these playoff games. And the Rockets have held the line to defend Jalen. They're saying, that he was out there playing decoy a lot of the time and that he's a very valuable piece to the Rockets. And a lot of fans are saying the Jalen Green experiment is over. Ship this man away. Trade him off of the Rockets. I don't want to see him ever again. And of course, your cool, reasonable boy here is nowhere near either one of those extremes right now. I think to say that Jalen Green was fine in the playoffs and did what we wanted him to do is a little bit delusional. We wanted him to be a decoy. We wanted him to be the main attention and the main focus of a lot of the Warriors' defensive scheming. But it didn't really equate to points, did it? It really didn't equate to offense. Jalen Green wasn't able to facilitate much offense based off of the attention he got. Jalen Green, his teammates and some of the role players that have stepped up in many moments in the regular season just weren't able to step up and find some of that offense. It's hard to say that Jalen Green was a big factor for the Houston Rockets in the playoffs. However, he was a big factor for them in the regular season, and the team probably doesn't want to completely tank his value by telling the entire league that Jalen Green is on the trading block. I do think that this is a little bit of kind of poker playing here by the front office of the Rockets, but also at the same time, I think they're sounding a little bit delusional. In one press conference, Jackson Gatlin, who's a host of Locked On Rockets, it's a great podcast, great source of Rockets information. He asked a very blunt question, a tough question, if you will, to the Rockets in a post-season press conference. He asked, basically what's going to happen with Jalen since his plus-minus numbers this season haven't been very great. What's kind of the plan for Jalen after this kind of tough season? What's the plan? And the Rockets' Rafael Stone kind of got defensive, had a cagey answer, was saying, and then said that it was a flawed question. I might have butchered it here when I was describing it secondhand, but it didn't seem too flawed in the moment. He got really defensive and was saying that he said something like, "I can make data say anything it wants," and that data, basically alluding to that data being flawed, and that Jalen Green has a lot of good data that reflects well on keeping him with the Rockets, which I find problematic because he's kind of being cagey and defensive when you could just take a little bit of ownership. I'm not saying throw Jalen Green under the bus, but definitely don't throw the media under the bus and make it seem like it's flawed to ask if Jalen Green, what Jalen Green's role on this team is going forward. So I thought that was bizarre, and I also thought it was bizarre that he said he can make data say anything he wants it to. As someone who's trading with him, I don't want to hear that, and as a player on the team, I don't want to hear that. It just seemed like a very weird answer to a question that was very difficult to answer for sure. But I felt like, yeah, we should talk about what Jalen Green's role in the future here. And for me, I'm not saying trade Jalen Green for everything. We need him off the team. Look, not every single basketball player that's drafted is going to be Michael Jordan. I think a lot of casual fans, you get this idea of a primary scorer, a offensive threat, having to kind of be this well-rounded Jordan-esque player, and that's really not how a lot of players in the NBA league. That's not how their career goes, obviously. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen Green should be our primary scoring threat going forward. I'm just saying that maybe it's finally time to say that Jalen Green is limited in his role with the Rockets. And being honest about that, and being able to try to find another offensive threat, a true offensive threat to help this team. Now, that might come at the expense of Jalen Green. And if that's the case, so be it for me. I'm not saying that I have to have Jalen Green on the team either. If finding another offensive weapon, the cost of it is going to be Jalen Green, and it is an offensive weapon I'm very excited about, and we have a huge future with, then I'm okay with it. If we're trading Jalen Green for Kevin Durant, then maybe that's not the package I want to see. Why? Well, it's not that Kevin Durant is worse than Jalen Green or anything like that. It's just that Kevin Durant's not going to be a long-term fixture with the Houston Rockets. I think Jalen Green, with the amount of money that he's being paid, with how young he is, he potentially could find some more success. But it's going to take him a lot of work. Jalen Green could be a late bloomer. Now, I'm not saying we have to hold on and hold tight and see what that blooming is like. We need offense now. So if we need that offense, I say we go out and get it. But at the same time, I'm not being overreactive saying Green has got to go. I think Green can mature and find his way to be a great NBA player still. However, the Rockets, the way they're built, the way they want to compete, we need an offensive weapon now. And I'm hoping that they can find a way to do that this offseason. And I'm hoping it's in a way that we have players the return that we get for the players that we'll have to give up. We have people that we could that can be a cornerstone for this franchise going forward, and that we can have around for some time and not just some kind of cheap vet rental. We'll see what the Rockets do. That's what I'm hoping for. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about some Houston Astros, and Brother Jesse is going to be at the end of this podcast. Stay tuned, folks.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back, folks. Welcome back. Carla is sitting here right next to me. I am very excited. When she's sitting next to me when I record, I feel like it's good luck. Whenever we watch the games together, and she sits right next to me, I feel like it's really good luck. So let's talk a bit about your Houston Astros. They, since we last talked, they dropped a series to the Brewers. They won a series against the Reds, and they just now started a series against the Royals. How time flies in just a week, folks. It's pretty crazy. But we're back talking about our Astros. They have had mixed results, but the biggest thing that we want to talk about, obviously, today is their pitching. We're having some trouble here with keeping pitchers healthy. Hayden Wesneski is on the IL. I do think that Wesneski is needing some time to recuperate from pitching more innings than he is used to. I'm hoping that he'll bounce back fine. He just needs some time off, and it's happening a little earlier in the season than we probably would hope. We're hoping maybe Wesneski would be able to be eased into starters work and not take some time on the IL. But here we are. Obviously, Eric Getty is still on the IL. And we have some pitchers coming up to help us. Obviously, AJ Bluebaugh came up for a start. We have Colton Gordon, who's going to start Wednesday. That's tomorrow, as of the recording of this podcast. Colton Gordon will start for the Astros, a rookie pitcher coming up from the minors. We also have Ryan Gusto, who has started off pitching very well for the Houston Astros, and now he's kind of in a little bit of a slump where we're hoping. Honestly, we're hoping he can break out of it, but we have some more rookie pitchers coming up threatening to take his spot in the rotation if he has some struggles. We also have Logan Van Wy, who's been called up, who has done some starting pitching in the past. So we have that group of Astros pitchers ready to try to make a break for this starting rotation. The pitching has been a strength generally for the Astros this season, and then this past week the starting pitching, we're starting to get worried about it here at the podcast with injuries and having to rely on these rookie pitchers. Just in time, we thought at least Lance McCullers Jr. is returning to the mound for the Houston Astros. He got a start with the White Sox. He got a start this past weekend with the Reds. Unfortunately for McCullers, he had a just terrible outing. It was tough to watch. We here at the podcast love Lance McCullers. We agree with McCullers. Bury me in the H. Folks, even if it goes under sea level, even more than it is already, bury me in the H. I'm on record. We love Lance McCullers Jr. here. He is a Houston hero. Seeing him have a really tough game was tough to watch. He really was having trouble commanding his sinker. It was all over the place. He was so close. He was throwing so many competitive pitching with breaking and off speed, but he just was struggling setting them up with his sinker. He was not getting the benefit of some calls as well, but that's part of the game. That's not the main reason. It was tough to see Lance have a really tough game, and we're hoping that he bounces back. Obviously, after the game in the press conference, manager Joe Espada was very furious, banging tables, as he had every right to, about Houston Astros fans getting angry about Lance McCullers and sending his family death threats, which, usually everything we talk about on this podcast, we talk about with a little bit of disassociation, a little bit, so that we can make jokes about it. However, this is not funny in any kind of way. It is no laughing matter. I used to be on Twitter. I used to be on the app formerly known as Twitter. It wasn't always the best place, and nowadays it is just cesspool. We are on Blue Sky. We're also on Threads. I'm happy to say that on Blue Sky, in my neck of the woods, none of the Astros fans on Blue Sky were doing any kind of ridiculous threats or venting in any kind of toxic way. So shout out to Blue Sky, all the skeeters out there on Blue Sky for creating a good environment. Also on Reddit, it seems like there were generally people supporting McCullers and condemning behavior of this violent rhetoric. Sports is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be our break from a very tough existence. No, I all joking aside, the world, there's always terrible stuff in the world. There's always terrible stuff in the news. There's things that we're fighting for. There's things that we're angry about in our real lives. And sports is supposed to be a distraction from all of that, a respite, a place where you can kind of vent your frustrations a little bit, have some positive emotion. But for the most part, it's not this kind of thing that people have turned sports into, where it's like completely violent. It's about borders. I love my Houston teams. I'm always repping the H, but I'm not about making other people feel uncomfortable for being from another space or from another place. Obviously, we talk our trash, we have our fun, but we're not here to be jerks or to be violent towards one another or to threaten violence towards one another. I really think that the people that do this are, this is me being a little funny, but degenerate gamblers. I like to make my sports bet every now and then, as people may have heard on the podcast. But I truly think that these people that are getting angry and getting violent, making threats, these despicable people, they've been empowered by despicable leaders and behaviors that are frankly, a lot of despicable behaviors are applauded now in society. And I really think that running your mouth behind like a coward on the keyboard on the internet is shameful already. But then to be making threats from that position, that's despicable behavior. We condemn it as well. Obviously, I have not met a Houston fan. I have not been in an online space that have made threats towards McCullers. But if I saw it, I'd speak up against it and shame that person. Truly, shame on anybody that's doing that. Remember, sports is supposed to be fun. This is our break from the terror, okay? So try to have some fun with it. Try to have some joy with it. And when bad things happen, just remind yourself that tomorrow's another day. We get more baseball. The Astros right now, they're 500. They're doing better than they were doing last season. The Astros are going to be fine. I think they're going to figure out a way to shore up this pitching. The offense is starting to turn around. Yainer Diaz is hitting. Christian Walker is hitting. Sure, Altuve and Jordan might be on the IL right now, but if we can get Jordan and Altuve healthy, and they're hitting with this lineup, with Isaac Paredes being really patient, with Jeremy Pena being a great leadoff hitter now, with Christian Walker starting to find some success and starting to shake off the really tough start that he's had, with Yainer Diaz really starting to knock off, kind of get the whatever problems he was having between the ears kind of shaken loose. I really think this team could really make a push. People are talking about the Seattle Mariners as if they're the best team in baseball. The Seattle Mariners are on a 4-game losing streak and are just 22-18. They're very catchable. We don't need to start panicking yet. I think the Astros will figure it out. Obviously, today they're still playing the Kansas City Royals. In just a little bit here, as of the recording of this podcast, Framber Valdez will get his start against the Royals. We're going to need Framber Valdez to have a very Framber-esque day. We're going to need him to eat a lot of innings. We're going to need him, even if he has some tough innings, even if he gives up some runs. We're going to need a quality start from him. We're going to need him to not give up 3 runs in last 6 innings. I think he's got it in him. He could play a little bit of a stopper here and get the Astros on track. And tomorrow we will see another rookie starting pitcher for the Houston Astros. We've been getting lots of rookie starts in the last couple seasons, but Colton Gordon is added to the list. We'll definitely have to get a list of rookie starts that we've had in the last couple seasons. As long as we don't talk about Hensley, there's been a lot of rookies finding success as starting pitchers for the Houston Astros. So we're hoping that we'll find some guys that could slot into the back end of that rotation, as May is going to be a long month. We have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 12 more games in a row right now, I believe, before we have a day off and then another week of games. So the Astros are going to need starting pitching right now. So we're rooting on Colton Gordon. We're hoping that this team can start to find some success. They're playing Kansas City here, and then they're going to go on a road trip after Wednesday. They're going to Arlington. Then they're going to go to Tampa Bay, and then they're back home for a 4-game series against the Seattle Mariners. I really think they can get this series against the Royals. They're just going to have to really fight. I think they got it. The Royals sometimes give the Astros fits. Texas hasn't been. I feel like that 4-game series in Texas is going to be a win or a split easy, and we'll have to do some projections. I don't know the matchups yet, and I haven't watched a lot of Rays baseball, but we're hoping for a series win against the Rays as well. Obviously, positioning the Astros to have that series against Seattle where they hopefully can overtake the first seed in the West. Maybe I'm being a little bit delusional, but you gotta believe, y'all. And with that being said, on that positive note, we're gonna take one more quick break. Brother Jesse's going to be here with us on this next segment. We're going to talk about him being at the Reds versus Astros game on Saturday and his feelings about McCullers. We're going to go through, have a little therapy. He's going to take us on a journey that he had. We'll be right back, folks.
Houston. Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
Welcome back to Space Cadet Sports. We're here with a guest on the podcast. That's right, I said you could call in. You know you could leave voicemails at speakpipe.com. That's right, speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. You could leave a voicemail. But if you're like Jesse, brother Jesse gets a shout out every episode. He also gets to call into the podcast. Jesse is here today. How's it going, Jesse?
Hey Paul, what's up? I've noticed you've had some really interesting guests on lately that they don't even like Sunday morning pre-recorded or like Saturday Night Live. It looks like they're just calling it to just basically bash the podcast.
Some podcast bashing, perhaps you're saying, has been happening
On there, and they want to talk about whatever they want.
Yeah. You sometimes. You have a podcast guest that just wants to talk about whatever they want to talk about. You're 100% right, but you're also talking perhaps about Sunday morning pre-recorded. Jesse, this is perhaps you're confused. I booked you for Space Cadet Sports.
What? This is about Space Cadet Sports. Well, you're in luck, because I was going to talk about baseball anyway.
Okay, yeah, that's what. Either way, you were going to talk about what you wanted to talk about, but you're here to talk some baseball. Lucky for me, I'm hitting record on the right podcast. I guess just by happenstance, I'm in luck. Jesse, let's talk some baseball. Have you been able to watch any Astros this season?
I have, but did you know there's going to be a new Texas team for the Banana Ballers?
There's going to be a new Banana Ball League. Okay, first off, before we get to the Stros talk, you're dropping some big news here on the podcast. I saw this on social media. Perhaps you sent it to me, but you want to talk some Banana Ball. What's happening in the Banana Ball world, Jesse?
So it looks like the league is expanding, and more people and more teams are joining. I hear there's at least 4 teams, and Texas is the newest team, and they're going to be playing in Houston eventually.
Oh wow! Okay, so it will be a new Banana Ball team. I did see this, and they.
If you look at the bottom of the caption, they have the
touring
Texas
dates.
Tour.
Yeah, so they will do a Texas tour, including a stop at Dyken Park. And yeah, that's pretty cool. Banana Ball, I actually haven't seen them in person. I've only seen their social media, which their social media is absolutely hilarious. Oh, I dropped you there, Jesse. But yeah, the social media is absolutely hilarious. A lot of fun stuff happening in Banana Ball. Have you been able to see a Banana Ball game, Jesse?
I have seen a lot of social media posts with game content on it.
Gotcha.
All right, but now onto the Astros, like you originally said. Sorry, I wanted to do whatever I wanted, even here.
Yeah, no.
I told you it's really to do so on other podcasts.
Yeah, you're coming on here. You have complaints about the crazy guests I have on my podcast, and you might be the most unhinged guest we've had on this one for sure. But that's okay, Jesse. We're fine with it. We're fine. You get, like I said, you're Jesse. You get a shout out in the every episode, and so of course you can call in with your unhinged takes. But yeah, let's talk. I'm glad we rarely get to talk about Banana Ball here, so I'm glad you'd let us know about that. But let's get to the Astros. I know that you went to an Astros game recently. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
All right, so I went to Saturday's game against the Reds.
That's right, this past Saturday's game.
Yeah, I was a little late, and I noticed we were already down by 3 points by the time I got there. And I wasn't even in the door. I was just in line, and we found out we were down by 3 points.
Yeah.
And then instantly I was like, okay, that's fine. We can come back from that. It's not a tough job. And then by the time we get to our seats, we were down by 7 points almost. And I'm looking at the scoreboard like, when did that happen? That was too quickly. And I started getting a little more heated as the game went on. They scored 10 points by the time the inning changed. and I was very heated by that point. I was looking at the board. I noticed that it was like it looked like a new pitcher to me, and I had no clue who it was. It was like Van Way, and I was like, is he the one doing this? Maybe he's new, so they're just giving him some practice time, but they gave him a little too much. And then I looked over to who was sitting next to me. It was Joe, which I heard he's been on here too. He told me, "Oh, Lance McCullers started," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so I was very angry, and I heard a lot of booing during this whole exchange too, like a loud booing.
Yeah, people are angry.
Yeah, like I really like, why? How could they let this happen? And then by the time basically it was 12-0 basically as well, because the Astros are having a tough time basically just getting some points on the board, and they by the next inning they had a point. But it was still like, I think I even texted you. I was like, "Paul, what's going on here?"
Yeah, you texted him.
Like, did they basically test out a couple rookies or something? And that's when you told me it was Lance McCullers, which made me a little more mad too. Even though I know he's in recovery, which means he's not up to his best, but I was still very mad. But in the end, I think I calmed down a little bit. I told myself, you know what, he needs some practice. And I'm glad he gets to practice with Major League Baseball, because as much as as much as we love Lance McCullers, like I love Lance McCullers, I got his jersey.
Yeah.
Because of how great a pitcher he is, and I believe he can make a comeback. But I think people just need to be, we just need to be relaxed and calm and give him his time. And then I got home and I found out later on the next day that people were up in arms over what happened.
Yeah.
And I found out, there's death threats going on, and I think no sport should cause death threats.
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely right.
We know Lance McCullers actually loves being with the Astros.
Yeah.
They send him back to the minor leagues until they're ready.
Yeah, they did have McCullers in the minor leagues for a little bit, but at this point in his recovery, it's better for him and the team long term to have him start getting some pitches in with the team, and you're completely right. Like this guy, he's a guy that when he signed his contract with Houston, he was like, bury me in the H. Not only is Lance McCullers a World Series hero, he's a total beloved Houston guy. And people get really upset about sports, Jesse. Like, people in LA get really upset that I'm even an Astros fan. People in Houston get mad at famously threatened Martin Maldonado, and they've apparently now are threatening Lance McCullers Jr. And this is completely, as we are making jokes and being silly in this episode, we're not joking around about this being completely unacceptable. It's just, there's no room for that, and those aren't real fans. It sounds like those are people that are gamblers that probably lost some money and are just really upset. These aren't real fans. These people need to calm down. I famously say they need to calmate, these people. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, we're letting him get some practice. We're letting him get some time in here. The Astros famously start slow, Jesse. Right now they're 500. They're not doing that bad. Like, so it's not, we need pitchers too, like we're out here, Ryan Gusto, and on Wednesday we're gonna have rookie pitcher Colton Gordon start. So we need pitchers. If we didn't have Lance McCullers pitching, we would just have other rookie pitchers pitching. So why not him? Why not let him get his practice?
But yeah, what's funny is originally when I was like, I think they're just giving somebody practice because with 3 down, that's about normal. That's at least normal.
Yeah, that's Logan Van Wy that was out there at one point.
Yeah, so like to me, 3 points down is a normal game, even with the rookie on, especially with the rookie on the mound. Because I know that's during the beginning of the season, we always have rookies. So, like for bettors, in my opinion, it may not be the best thing to bet at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
Because of that reason. Either way, because the Astros batters are just as inconsistent as the rookie pitchers basically is. Where it's like there'll be games where they just blow it out of the park. Like I feel like that Saturday's game was actually a really good game for batters, but in this case it just happened to be we had not great pitching. So
yeah.
but like you said, it was practice. Like he needs practice eventually with the major leagues. That way, by the time maybe playoffs come by, he is primed and ready and just be throwing strikeouts after strikeouts like he normally does.
Yeah. No, I am kind of we are both being silly by calling it practice, but really what it is like he's going to have to make these adjustments. And at some point, you don't know what adjustments you have to make until you are actually throwing to real live batters, and I think that he, as long as he's healthy, he'll be able to make those adjustments. On Saturday, I was looking at Baseball Savant. I was looking at the stats, kind of nerding out on those stats like I do sometimes. But I was looking at his sinker, and he couldn't locate.
Like you've been looking at stats since you were 5.
Yeah, I'm always looking at the stats. But the problem in that game was his sinker. He couldn't locate his fastball. So, like, his changeup was good and the slider was pretty good. But because he couldn't locate his fastball, he was really struggling with his command, So he couldn't set up his pitches because he couldn't locate the fastball very well. And also, if you're throwing a sinker, but it's going in the middle of the plate, that's kind of just a big meatball for some batters that like hitting fastballs. It's too high for a sinker. So he ran into some trouble. He's going to make those adjustments to figure out how to throw that sinker better.
And I think out of all the people we can trust to make those adjustments, it's Lance McCullers. But do you remember the time when I was when I was a kid playing baseball and I decided I wanted to pitch?
Yeah.
And you were often my my catcher who got hit a lot, basically.
Yeah, I took some damage back there, but that's fine. It's part of the job.
But like, as you know, like eventually I was like, I want to learn a curveball.
Yeah.
And that's when my fastball got significantly worse.
Yeah.
My fastball, I'm not gonna give it a speed, but it was pretty fast for my age, I think.
Yeah, it was a competitive, decent fastball. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember enough to be putting numbers on it, but yeah, you when you were trying to learn another pitch, your fastball essentially took some it wasn't quite as sharp as it used to be because you were adjusting to learning the curveball grip and throwing it, so you kind of lost a little polish on that fastball because you weren't practicing it as much as you used to. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think it'd be definitely fair to say because you definitely were getting hit as soon as you started running that curveball, because I was throwing it like a fastball, basically.
You were trying to figure out your arm slot. You were trying to figure out how to throw it. You're also trying to figure out that release point. All these things are hard to figure out when you're learning a new pitch. And yeah, like there were some wild throws, but that's part of learning it. But these adjustments that they're making at those levels, You trust that Lance McCullers has been doing this long enough. He's a competitor, and he wants to pitch well. He's going to figure it out.
Like, I figured it out, but I can no longer throw that fastball, basically, by the time I was done.
You just had one pitch at a time that was super competitive. But yeah, no, you were a kid, and you were just trying to get that curveball going. Just you kind of figured it
I
out.
didn't get that either. It was something else entirely at the end of it.
It had a different shape. Yeah, it was pretty weird. Maybe like a slurve.
Very off, slow pitch, basically.
Yeah, like almost maybe like actually maybe it would be more like a splitter. Yeah, I was like maybe it maybe moved a little bit more like a splitter at times. You were trying to get it, but like the shape, you were trying to get that curve shape, so it kind of like but it was a weird pitch. But yeah, I want to say he would definitely look like a splitter at times. But yeah, man, that I think Lance McCullers will figure it out. I think we're sending him all the love. All the real Astros fans are sending him love. Like on Reddit, people were talking.
Lance listens to this podcast, so
of course
he's safe with us.
He's safe with us.
With a lot of the other Astros.
Yeah, the real Astros fans would actually go to war for Lance McCullers Jr. And we're no different. We have nothing but love and respect for him, and hopefully these internet clowns will chill out or get banned from their social media platforms for acting foolish. But before.
Yeah, definitely acting very impulsive.
Yeah, for sure. They need to calmate. But Jesse, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to say? Any other baseball takes? Any other sports things?
Not that I can recollect.
Yeah, not at this moment.
I remember now. That day they were giving away a bubblegum Altuve bobblehead where he basically is standing, leaning on his bat a little bit and blowing a bubble with probably Hubba Bubba bubble or Big League. I think it's Big League Chew.
Big League Chew was the brand.
Because that's the bubble gum they generally have for hats.
Yeah.
In the major leagues, it seems like a Big League Chew.
They have that. I definitely like those Big League Chew hats. But yeah, so you got a nice bobblehead on that game. Well, cool.
I think it is Hubba Bubba actually.
It is
the goat, but the wrapper looks like Hubba Bubba.
We'll have
the yellow wrapper with the red inside.
We'll have to do some research.
Red and oval.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. We'll definitely look into the bubblegum brands for sure. But I'm glad
it just says the goat.
The goat. But that's nice. You got to get a bobblehead to add to your collection. How is this one of the favorites that you've gotten?
It is one of the favorites, but it's not the favorite. I think the favorite is the one they gave her last year's. I think either Day de los Muertos or the Mexican Heritage Day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Mexican Heritage because it's like a skull on top of one of the Astros heads.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you got...
very beautiful colors. And I also have a really old Mike Scott one.
An old Mike Scott bobblehead. Awesome. Those are cool. Yeah. I have a couple bobbleheads over here. I gotta get some glue. Sadly, I had a Justin Verlander bobblehead that didn't make it. That kind of fell off of the shelf in a trimmer. Not like a big old earthquake, but just enough of a trimmer to break your stuff.
To knock it off shelves.
Yeah, you're just like, what was that? The universe just being mad at me?
Maybe it was LA mad that you had an Astros. I don't.
Yeah, it was the whole.
Since then, just knocked it down. It's like I don't like it.
Yeah, it seems like it. They're pretty violent out here, these guys. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I'm glad you got a new bobblehead to add to the collection. My favorite right now is probably my Jordan bat flip bobblehead. I like that one. That one was pretty fun. But that's cool, man. Thanks for being on the show. Obviously, I was gonna say, if you probably don't have anything to plug, but you do have a little something to plug. You actually do help me with my other podcast, Sunday Morning Pre-Recorded. Sunday Morning Pre-Recorded is a Saturday Night Live and sketch comedy podcast. You've been helping me on that, and also we have a big finale coming up that I'm sure you would want it. Any listeners on this that liked this, definitely check out that finale coming up on Sunday Morning Pre-Recorded with Jesse.
Oh, it's with me?
I mean, you said you were going to do a segment, I asked a lot of the people. I asked a lot of the people to come back. You said that you would at least come back for a segment, right? Okay. Well, maybe it won't be with Jesse, but we'll see. Jesse is on the podcast in the past, so you can check out past episodes with Jesse. And obviously, we have to do some negotiating to figure out what episodes he'll do in the future. And that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thanks to Brother Jesse for being the guest on this episode. Thanks so much for everybody listening out there. Please smash those buttons for me. Like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it. Hit all of those buttons for me while you're at it. We are a small podcast and we only go as far as our listenership takes us. So please give us a hand there and hit some of those buttons. We are supported by listeners like you. Please share this with a Houston fan or an Australian in your life, or give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. Go ahead and check out the Substack if you'd be so kind. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can be a free subscriber. You get every podcast, every meme dump, every article. Obviously, we've been busy the past week, but we're going to get back active on it here, folks. You get all kinds of stuff there for free. There is a subscription package if you want to be so kind and support the blog and the podcast. However, I don't like to put too much behind the paywall because I want to talk about Houston sports with y'all. If you want to let me know what you think, how you're feeling about these people hating on Lance McCullers, let me know your take. You can call in and leave me a voicemail on SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/SpaceCadetSports. Or, of course, you can comment or reach out on social media. That's going to be at SpaceCadetSports.bsky.social on on Blue Sky. My goodness, that's where we're the most active. You could also find us at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram and Threads. Or if you're like me and you love weird jokes, you can find me personally on social media making jokes, memes, art, podcasts, and so much more at Paul Salazar Jr. at paulsalazarjr.bluesky.social, or sorry, .bsky.social. My lord, I'm forgetting. I'm such a mess right now. Or you can find me online at www.paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. You can find my other Substack, all my other nonsense if you're nasty. You can find my merch. Definitely check out Sunday Morning Pre-Recorded. Jesse has been helping me with that podcast. We also have some merch for that podcast as well on the website. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, to be the best that you can be, keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.